Climate change and migrant worker living conditions are interrelated. We cannot hope to achieve climate change if we do not address basic rights of workers and their housing. It was in 2008 when I first visited a construction site as I started LabourNet that I realized that the worker condition was something we needed to pay attention to. It is then that I met Shanto Biswas, a migrant worker from West Bengal who had come to Bangalore in search of work. I still remember Shanto telling me that he was told by his friend that there are job opportunities in Bangalore. He also felt, and his friend had reiterated, that he could earn well and send money home if he came to Bangalore. Shanto had spent 3 months in Bangalore. Shanto should have been very happy, but when I looked at him, I felt his demeanor did not exude either satisfaction, happiness, or contentment. So I asked him, "You must be happy. You're earning well and you're able to send money home." To which he paused and he said, "Yes, I am earning well. I am sending money home. But I took water, air, and space for granted in my village. In my village too, there is no electricity and no toilets and no sanitation. But here I lived in a cramped quarters. There are 10 of us who live in a room and we share our space. Everyone in the city thinks of us as dirty. They think we do not bathe, they think we defecate in the open, and our cooking spoils their air because we use wood and kerosene." It is then that it struck me that there is a problem. Shanto and his fellow workers had not only lost their dignity, but there was stigma because they were considered to be the main reasons for air and water pollution and the piling waste in the city. Even though 12 years has gone by, I don't think much has changed. The living conditions of the workers has remained to be the same. Imagine the impact on the environment of a faulty design structured to actually cause harm to both the individual and rights of the workers as well as to the environment. During the COVID-19 pandemic, what struck us most was that there were millions of workers like Shanto, both in Bangalore as well as across India. Each of them was struggling to find a space for themselves. Suddenly, the city for which they toiled and worked for did not own them. All they had dreamt was to send money home. They never owned the city, and that is evident. The pandemic showed us that the workers were in isolation. While they toiled and worked in the city neither owned them nor did they own the city. Suddenly, millions of them were homeless. They started trudging back home reluctantly. The city was unwilling to share their spaces with them, their water with them, or their sanitation. The city did not own them is evident. The city was actually blaming them, and the stigma that they carried was of carriers of the virus. The deadly virus was something which woke us up. All of us realized that millions of workers, 37 million workers, are living away from their homes. And the places that they reside are dismal. The conditions are without water, air, ventilation, sanitation, or cooking. What is even more sad is that 61% of the wastewater which is coming into land and into our water bodies is because we haven't thought of their living conditions. When we started distributing food in April 2020 is when it struck me, the stark reality of their lives. And it hit me, and I remembered Shanto's statement that his living quarters had made him lose his self-respect. It is then that I thought to myself that there is a problem in hand. It is not that we are not aware of this problem, it is that we did not act on the problem. It is then that we looked at various news items, and every news item was telling us the same. The city did not own the workers. The city did not want to share its resources as they were seen as outsiders who were the reason for the deadly virus. Who forms the city? It is us who actually design, plan, and make the city. It is then that some of us who are working in this sector, working to alleviate the poverty as well as living conditions of workers decided to come together and said our responsibility is to design and execute projects in which they have decent water, ventilation, air, sanitation, and power. Energy access, we said, needs to be central, and energy needs to be defined broadly. It is then that Selco Foundation, LabourNet, and Mission Vishwas came together and designed a humane living condition for workers. The question that comes to our mind is, what is the cost of actually ensuring that workers can live in a decent condition? And what surprised me was the cost of an apartment in a Bangalore or any city like that is all that it takes for us to house workers decently, in decent conditions and acceptable, environmentally friendly situation for a year. You would agree with me that the cost benefit of actually spending on workers is going to benefit us. It is for us as well as the future generations that we need to invest on worker accommodation, worker rights. Worker accommodation and worker rights is a small price to pay. Next time we walk past a construction site, let's look to see, is the accommodation structured? Is the accommodation have decent water, ventilation and lighting? All three are important. We are not doing it only for worker rights or for worker living conditions now, but we are looking at it from ourselves to save it for the future. Climate change and worker rights and worker living conditions are closely interlinked. It is for the next 50 years that we need to take action now.